My name is Ethan. I'm a 26-year-old grad student currently living just outside of Portland, Oregon. A few months ago, I was renting a small 2-bedroom house with my best friend, Jake. It wasn't anything fancy, just an old place with creaky floors and weird plumbing, but it was quiet, cheap and close to campus. Jake had to fly back to Minnesota for a family emergency and would be gone for an entire week. I told him I'd watch the place while he was gone. Honestly, I was kind of looking forward to having the house to myself. I figured it would be the perfect chance to relax, catch up on some reading, and finally get some work done on my thesis. The first night was exactly what I expected. I stayed up late playing Xbox, ordered some pizza, and fell asleep on the couch with a documentary playing in the background. It felt peaceful. There were no loud neighbors, no sudden knocks on the door, and no one asking me to help clean the kitchen. I even told Jake the next morning that he should take longer if he needed to. Joking, of course, but a little part of me meant it. By the second night, I started noticing the silence more. The kind of silence that doesn't feel comforting anymore. You know when a place is too quiet? Like the walls themselves are waiting for something to happen. Every little creak from the wood floors started to sound louder than it should. I chalked it up to the house settling. Or maybe it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. Still, I left the hallway light on before going to bed. Not because I was scared, just, in case I needed to get up in the middle of the night. On the third day, I decided to start working on my thesis. I had the whole dining table to myself, so I spread out my notes and laptop, poured myself some coffee, and got into the zone. A couple of hours passed, and everything seemed normal until my phone buzzed. It was a text from Jake. He asked if I had locked the basement door. I froze. The basement? I hadn't even gone down there yet. I replied, yeah, of course, just to avoid a weird conversation. But the truth was, I had no idea the house even had a basement door that locked from the inside. I got up and walked over to the hallway near the back of the house. Sure enough, there was a door I had never paid attention to. It looked old, faded paint, rusty hinges. I tried the handle, locked. I leaned down to look through the small gap at the bottom, but it was pitch black underneath. I told myself not to overthink it. Old houses have locked doors. Maybe Jake keeps his tools down there, or maybe it's just storage. That night, I turned on the TV in my room and left it playing at low volume while I slept. Just to fill the silence, it was around 1 a.m. when I woke up to the sound of someone calling my name. Ethan. The voice was soft, familiar. At first I thought I was dreaming, or maybe the TV in the background had shifted to something creepy while I was asleep. I blinked a few times trying to clear my head. The room was dark except for the glow of the TV, screen playing some late-night infomercial. I muted it, sat up, and listened. Silence. I laid back down, figuring it was just in my head. But then again, a little louder this time. Ethan, come here. This time I was fully awake. It sounded like my sister's voice, the same tone she'd use when she was annoyed and trying to get my attention. But my sister lives in New York and I hadn't seen her in months. Even weirder, she never visits this house. I sat frozen in bed, staring at the hallway outside my door, which I had left open just a crack. The voice had come from the kitchen. Now I should have just stayed in bed. That would have been the smart thing to do. But curiosity mixed with the kind of adrenaline you only get when your brain isn't sure if you're in danger. I got up slowly, grabbed my phone for a flashlight, and stepped into the hallway. The house was dead quiet. No movement, no sound. Just that cold, still air you feel in the middle of the night. I tiptoed down the hall toward the kitchen. The hardwood floor creaked under my feet with every step. When I turned the corner, the kitchen lights were off, but the refrigerator was humming like usual. Everything looked normal. I stood there for a few seconds trying to process what I had just heard. Maybe the voice was part of a dream I'd dragged into my waking mind. Just as I was about to turn back, I heard it again, but this time it was different. The voice didn't say my name. It didn't say anything. It laughed. Not a loud, obvious laugh. A quiet one. A dry, whispery chuckle. Like someone standing right behind you who thinks something is funny, but doesn't want you to know why. I turned around instantly, shining my phone's light across the room. Nothing, no one. I felt the hair rise on the back of my neck. I backed away slowly and turned on every light on the way back to my room. I locked the door behind me. Not that a thin bedroom lock would stop anything, but it gave me something to focus on while I sat on the edge of my bed, heart pounding. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. I stayed up scrolling through Reddit threads about hallucinations, sleep paralysis, and voices during REM cycles. Some of it made sense. Some of it didn't. But what stuck with me the most wasn't the voice itself, it was how real it sounded. Like it was standing right there. Like it knew me. And the next morning when I walked into the kitchen, I noticed something that made my stomach turn. The basement door? It was open. Just a few inches, but it had definitely been closed the night before. I stood there staring at the basement door, still half asleep, half frozen. It was barely open, just a crack wide enough to see that it was pitch black inside. I hadn't touched that door since the day Jake texted me, and even then it was locked. But now? Unlocked. Open. I told myself it might have just swung loose. Maybe the lock was old and didn't catch right. Maybe it was just air pressure, or the way the house shifts at night. But I knew I hadn't opened it. I knew that door hadn't moved in years, based on the dust buildup around the hinges. This wasn't just something that happened. I grabbed a small flashlight from the kitchen drawer and pushed the door open. The stairs creaked as they came into view, wooden, steep, narrow. I hadn't gone down there since we moved in. Jake always said there was nothing down there but some paint cans and plumbing stuff. Honestly, I never had a reason to check. Until now, as I stood at the top of the steps, I hesitated. It wasn't the dark that got to me, it was the cold. I don't mean regular basement cold. I mean this heavy, damp, unnatural kind of chill that hit me as soon as the door opened. It smelled like mold, but underneath that was something metallic, almost like blood. I took a breath and started walking down. Every step felt like it took longer than the last. My flashlight beam jittered slightly as my hand trembled. At the bottom of the stairs, I swept the light across the basement. Cement floor, exposed pipes, shelves stacked with boxes, all the usual stuff. But then I heard something, a low buzz. It was faint at first, like an old electric toothbrush, but more broken. It had this warbling, uneven quality, like whatever was making the noise was trying to imitate something. Electronic, but couldn't quite get it right. I followed the sound to the far wall, where the floor dipped slightly near the water heater. Behind it, wedged into the ground, was a small vent. A floor vent. Not for air conditioning, not for heating. Just a black rectangular hole with a rusted grate over it. The buzzing was coming from inside that vent. I crouched down and leaned in a little closer. The flashlight beam barely reached into the opening. There was something about it that made me feel like I shouldn't be near it. Not like I was in danger exactly, but like I was being watched. And then the buzzing stopped. In its place came the slow, steady sound of breathing. Deep, wet, human. I didn't wait. I stood up, ran up the stairs without looking back, and slammed the basement door shut behind me. I locked it. Then I shoved a chair under the knob like I was in some cheap horror movie. I stood there for minutes listening, trying to hear if the breathing had followed me, but all I could hear was the sound of my own heart pounding in my ears. The rest of that day I didn't touch the door. I didn't go near it. I didn't even walk past the hallway if I didn't have to, and that night I slept with the lights on, every single one. It was the fourth night and I was exhausted. I hadn't slept properly since I heard the breathing in the basement. Every little sound the house made, pipes shifting, wood creaking, wind brushing against the windows, put me on edge. I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted in the house, like the air felt heavier now, like I wasn't really alone. I stayed up late sitting on the couch with a blanket around me, flipping between old reruns and Reddit threads about unexplained noises in houses. That's when I heard it for the first time. Click. It was sharp, deliberate, like someone flicking their tongue off the roof of their mouth. I paused the TV and sat perfectly still. It came again from the direction of the hallway. I turned toward the sound, but I couldn't see anything. The hallway light was on, but the noise didn't stop. I stood up slowly, trying not to make a sound. The clicking felt wrong, not like an animal, not like something mechanical. It was too rhythmic, almost like it was trying to get my attention. I stepped into the hallway and listened. Nothing. I walked past the kitchen, past the bathroom, past the locked basement door. The house was quiet again. I was just about to turn around and head back when I heard it once more. This time louder, right behind me. I spun around, hard in my throat. No one was there. I checked every room. Under the bed, in the closets. Even opened the fridge for no reason, like I expected to find something hiding inside. Nothing. Trying to convince myself it was stress or maybe some weird plumbing noise. I went back to the living room and turned the TV back on. I even turned the volume up a bit just to drown out anything else. An hour later, I was finally starting to doze off when I heard it again. Click. But this time it wasn't coming from the hallway. It was coming from inside the room. From the closet. The living room has one of those small storage closets by the front door. I hadn't used it once. It was always shut, always still. I grabbed my phone flashlight and stared at the closet door. The clicking had stopped again, but I could feel something like pressure on my chest. I stepped closer and reached out slowly. My hand hovered over the knob. I don't know what I was expecting. To open it and see something standing there, or nothing at all, which might have been worse in its own way. But I didn't open it. I couldn't. Instead, I backed away, went to my room, and locked the door. For the rest of the night, I lay awake, listening. Not just for clicking, but for anything. Breathing, footsteps, voices. I felt like the house had turned into a waiting room. For something I didn't understand. And just before sunrise, I swore I heard a soft knock. Once, on my bedroom door. By the fifth night, I was running on caffeine, nerves, and denial. I kept telling myself I was imagining things. That stress and isolation were playing with my mind. But no amount of rational thinking could explain the clicking sounds, the voice that knew my name, or the cold breath I felt coming out of a sealed basement vent. I hadn't told Jake any of this. What would I even say? Hey man, while you're gone, the house decided to start acting possessed? So I kept it to myself. That night I tried something different. I turned off the TV and left my phone charging across the room. I figured maybe the screens were making things worse. I lay in bed with the light on, listening to a playlist of ambient rain sounds through a Bluetooth speaker. At some point I drifted off. And then I woke up. No sound, no rain, no music. Just silence. I looked at the speaker, it was still on, but the sound had stopped. My room was dim. The bedside lamp flickered slightly, like it was struggling to stay on. And then I heard it. A single creak. From above me, I froze. The sound had come from directly over my ceiling. I live in a one-story house. I stayed completely still listening. Then I heard it again, another slow creak, followed by a third, and then a step. It was the unmistakable sound of someone walking. Not pacing, not running, just slow, deliberate steps across the ceiling, like someone barefoot was moving slowly from one end of the house to the other. I sat up in bed, heart pounding, staring at the ceiling. My mind raced. There was no second floor, no attic, just insulation and beams. I'd seen it myself when Jake was up there adjusting the Wi-Fi cables once. There wasn't even enough room to stand, but now it sounded like someone was standing and moving. The steps reached the far side of my room and stopped. I stared at the spot where the noise had ended, trying not to blink. The silence stretched on for what felt like hours. Then came another sound, soft, almost delicate. The sound of something being dragged. It scraped across the ceiling slowly, as if someone was pulling their hand or their fingernails across the wood. I couldn't take it anymore. I got up, grabbed a broom, and pulled down the folding ladder to the crawl space above the hallway. A wave of heat hit me as I popped the hatch open, and for a moment I felt ridiculous, like I was about to yell at a raccoon or some trapped bird. But when I pointed my flashlight up into the crawl space, I found nothing. No animals, no debris, just the tight wooden beams and silver insulation. And dust. So much dust except for one thing. Footprints. Bare human-shaped impressions disturbed the layer of dust, leading in a straight line from one side of the crawl space to directly above my room, and they stopped there. I didn't sleep after that. I left the crawl space hatch open like I was daring something to climb back down, but nothing did. The footprints stayed up there like a warning, or maybe a message. I tried to tell myself someone had broken in, that maybe a squatter found their way into the attic and had been living there, without us knowing. But deep down, I knew better. There wasn't enough space for someone to even lie down up there. Whatever made those prints didn't walk like a normal person. It moved slow, like it wanted to be heard. The next morning, I tried to act normal. I made coffee, opened a few windows, played some music, just anything to make the house feel alive again. But it didn't work. The silence kept crawling back in, settling into every corner. Later that day, I dropped my phone. It slipped out of my hand while I was walking past the kitchen and bounced down the basement stairs. I heard it clatter somewhere at the bottom. I stood at the top step for a long time, just staring down into that dark pit of cold concrete. Eventually, I made myself go down. The air was colder than usual. The light switch at the top didn't work, so I used the flashlight on my backup phone. My main one was lying face down near the boiler, screen slightly cracked. I picked it up and was about to head back up when I heard it again. Breathing. Same as before, slow, damp, heavy. It was coming from the vent in the floor. At first, I tried to ignore it. I told myself it was just the house or maybe the pipes shifting. But the breathing grew louder, closer, and then something moved behind the grate. I dropped the flashlight. It rolled to the side, casting a sideways beam directly into the vent. That's when I saw it. A face. Pale, sunken, almost featureless. No eyebrows, no hair. Just skin stretched too tightly over bone like it had been hiding in the dark too long. Its eyes were open, wide, too wide, and it was staring straight at me. We didn't move. It just watched. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Every muscle in my body wanted to run, but I couldn't look away. The thing didn't blink. It didn't make a sound. It only breathed. Then slowly it began to slide backward, deeper into the vent, until the darkness swallowed it completely. I grabbed my flashlight and ran. Up the stairs, out of the kitchen, straight into my room. I didn't stop to lock the basement door. I didn't even look behind me. I sat on my bed for a long time, shaking. Eventually, I worked up the nerve to text Jake. I didn't tell him everything, just enough to make it clear that something was seriously wrong. He didn't answer right away. When he finally did, his reply made my skin crawl. "Dude, I thought you knew. That vent doesn't go anywhere. It's just decorative. It's been sealed since we moved in." I left the house 2 days later. I couldn't stay there, not after seeing that face. Not after what Jake told me about the vent. I packed up what I could, left him a long, half-coherent note, and moved into a small apartment in the city. Top floor, no basement, no crawl spaces, no vents in the floor. Just clean white walls, loud neighbors, and the kind of constant noise I used to hate. It felt safe. For a while, the first week, nothing happened. I slept better than I had in months. The light in my room didn't flicker. The walls didn't creak. Everything felt normal. I almost convinced myself that I'd imagined the whole thing. Stress, sleep deprivation, a series of bad dreams that blurred into reality. Then one night I woke up around 3 a.m, not because of a noise, not because of a dream, but because of the silence. There was something wrong with it. The kind of silence that feels heavy, like it's pressing against your skin. I sat up and looked around. The apartment was still. The only light came from a street lamp outside, casting a faint glow through the blinds. And then I heard it. Click. Soft, deliberate, coming from the closet. I stared at the door, heart already racing. Another click. Then another, like something remembering how to announce itself. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. I walked to the closet and opened it slowly. There was nothing inside, just my coat, some shoes, a few cardboard boxes. But when I stepped back, I noticed something on the inside of the door. Scratches. Small, thin, uneven, like fingernails. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed on the couch, lights on, back against the wall, just waiting. The next day, I talked to the building manager. I asked if anyone had ever complained about strange noises or electrical problems. He just gave me a weird look and said no, that the last guy who lived here left in a hurry and didn't say why. Later that evening, I was brushing my teeth when the mirror began to fog up from the shower steam. I wasn't thinking much about it until I saw it. Not a reflection, not a shape, just one word, written faintly in the fog. Ethan. I dropped everything and walked out of the apartment. Didn't even lock the door. I don't think whatever was in that house stayed there. I think it found a way out, and I think it still knows my name. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. If you're watching this alone at night, maybe leave a light on. And if you've ever heard your name whispered from a room you know is empty, maybe you weren't imagining it. Got a creepy experience of your own? Drop it in the comments below. I read every single one. Like the video if it gave you chills. And subscribe for more true horror stories just like this. Stay safe out there, and whatever you do, don't open the vent.